They call some people about jam. Whether drunk or sober, rich or poor, they jam everywhere, with everyone. And it don't matter when, day or night, there's always time for jamming. From 3 a.m. to 6 in the afternoon, in any room of the house or on any street corner. They jam in supermarkets, funerals, department stores, rooftops. Wherever they find people, they jam through rain or sun. Sleet or snow, they will jam if they can. My name is Alfonso Texidor. I'm 65 years old. I have been politically active my whole life since I was in high school. And in general, I've always tried to be involved with the struggle for people's rights.
The place, I mean, where I was born, I mean, it was an incredible place. I mean, there were no paved roads, there was no electricity or running water, and they were just shacks. It was called El Panguito. El Panguito means, you know, like pango means mud. When the rains came, it would get everything would get flooded. I remember, you know, like when my mother, you know, put me on the floor on a blanket, I looked in between the cracks in the wood, the wooden floor, and I could see little fishes swimming, and it was black mud. You know, I mean, that's the reason I got infected by polio, you know, because, you know, it was muddy, it was dirty water, you know. So I got polio when I was about 2 years old, you know. We moved to New York. That was around 1954, 55. We were living in this, you know, heavy-duty barrio, you know. Well, for one thing, I remember standing looking across the street, and the buildings were just so much bigger. And I remember looking at the fire escapes and wondering what those things really were. No, I stayed there till my mother died. I must have been around 15. We buried her in New York, and then we came back, and I went back with my father and my sister. I finished high school, and, you know, I entered the university for a while. Universidad de Puerto Rico, in Rio Piedras, you know. See, there were two major issues, political issues, you know, in Puerto Rico. One was the issue of colonialism and independence, you know. The other one was the war in Vietnam. Students were getting drafted, and there was this whole anti-draft movement. And then finally, around 1967, you know, I was already, you know, part of like the independence movement. And then there was, in the university, there was the FUPI. And the FUPI was Federación de Universitarios Pro Independencia. We had this big demonstration, you know, a protest against the war in Vietnam and against recruitment of Puerto Ricans, you know, into the U.S. Armed Forces. The demonstration, the protest turned into a riot. Police beat up students, you know, shots were fired. That was early 1967. The authorities and the university had this big trial, you know. They expelled us, you know, over 100 students. This was like a very intense time. You know, we thought that the revolution might be happening any minute.
See, I was in New York City. I was a member of an organization called Up Against the Wall, Motherfuckers. Up against the wall, motherfuckers! Up against the wall, motherfucker.
Up against the wall, motherfucker. Up against the wall, up against the wall, up against the wall, motherfucker. La 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 la. La 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 la. Yeah. La 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 la.
They were anarchists, you know, in the Lower East Side. We had demonstrations. They would, you know, try and chase us and try and arrest people. So the motherfuckers would just run into the middle of the street, stop traffic, overturn trash cans, and the cops couldn't do anything. And they would run from the east side to the west side and back. You know, and they were led by the motherfuckers, you know. I mean, you know, it wasn't like you had a membership card. And that's when everything was just breaking up. Yeah, and there was all this, there was still demonstrations, but that was at the end of the movement. I mean, after that, everything just splintered. Finally, the motherfuckers broke up.
And then in 1970, New York got just so intense that they were accusing our group of incitement to riot. So we all had to leave New York. So I came out. First I lived in Oregon for a few months, and then I ended up living here in San Francisco. I became coordinator for this music program in the Haight-Ashbury, and I used to teach music fundamentals. Finally, around 1980, I ended up living here in the Mission.
I started working with a bunch of poets, you know. Yeah, I hooked up with Jorge Argueta and Jack Hirschman and, you know, and a bunch of other poets, you know. In Latin American countries, you know, they have a tradition of like, of the declamadores, you know, the people that declaim poetry. Yeah, I mean, and nobody can read poems like I.
If you wanted to borrow his jams and sell them wholesale, but it had already been done with other people's jams, and the jamming market was low. So in order to create a new market, they printed pictures of him jamming on T-shirts with the letters J-A-M written over his head, which they hoped to sell to his many friends, most of whom were women, because they appreciated his jams much more than men.
Well, el tecolote, well, at first I started as a translator, and then I became an editor for the community calendar. And it was lovely because I could announce all kinds of things that were happening in the community. I've had many, many, many happy memories with El Tecolote. You know, El Tecolote has always been, it's always been an outlet for me to reach the community. It's always supported me in all my efforts, you know.
And tell them that I'm retiring, okay?
I think education, you know, is crucial. Be aware of the political issues of, you know, that affect you. I have been personally involved with the struggle against tyranny my whole life. And my life could have been very different, but I'm not disappointed.
Now he don't jam because he is dead. But some say he's still jamming away up in the ether or in the air or wherever it is where his spirit remains. Some say they have even seen him jamming somewhere between their dreams and the moon.
Alfonso, te queremos mucho.
Bueno, ahí, bla, bla, bla.